for doing the session. That's it, right? Well, so this week, it's the week number 4. We're going to have only one class, right? For the first time, we're going to have only one class. And this class is going to be related to the environmental problems, environmental issues that we could possibly have in our cities, right? So in this case, we have 3 different columns. In the first column, we have a series of problems: the traffic, plastic waste. What is the meaning of waste?
Desperdicio.
Desperdicio, very good, vale. And also we have visual contamination, and we have intolerance, and we have poverty, and we have corruption, and we have anxiety and depression. Well, not all of them are environmental issues, but they are problems that society have, right? Some of them with the emotional intelligence, some of them with the resources, with the money of the people, some of them with the feelings like the intolerance, no? But others are environmental issues, like, for example, the traffic, the plastic waste, the visual contamination, the noise contamination, all of them. Ready? I'm going to ask you something, please, if you can. Here we have a little tool in the corner, which is a pencil, and it's for writing. I am going to ask you to match the problems of the column A with the consequence in the column B. This is, for example, the traffic. What is the consequence of traffic? Water pollution, public violence, lack of resources, pollution, suicide rates, visual stress, or insecurity. What do you think?
Maybe public violence?
Public violence? Amy, you said public violence?
Yes.
It's a possibility, but probably there is another one, or no?
Or insecurity?
The traffic, insecurity? You think so?
No, 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 sorry. I watching a correction.
Well, the corruption, that one causes other different problems. But what about the traffic? The traffic, what is the main consequence of the traffic? What do you think?
Pollution.
Pollution, ¿cierto? Entonces, I am going to mark traffic and pollution, right? Girls, please use the option in your computers to annotate and match yourself the other possible options. Usen el lapicito que está en la esquina inferior izquierda de sus pantallas. Úsenlo para like match the 2 options, the option with of the column A with the option of the column B. Check it out. Exactly. Muy bien, Valeria. So Valeria dice que one consequence of the plastic waste is the water pollution, of course, because the plastic goes to the ocean. So one of the consequences of the plastic waste is the water pollution, no? What about the visual contamination? What do you think it's the Valeria says anxiety and depression, of course, causes a lot of suicide rates or an increase in the suicide rates. Do you remember what is the meaning of increase?
Aumentar.
Aumento o incremento, ¿cierto? Muy bien, vale. Thank you so much. ¿Qué otro? What other? Do you have any other possibility here? The visual contamination, what does it cause? Amy, ¿puedes entrar normal?
Yes, it's my internet.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Okay. But if you have other options, tell me. If you don't want to use the marker, no problem. Tell me, and I mark it for you. So, what is the consequence of these problems? No, no idea. What is the consequence of the visual contamination?
visual stress?
Of course, so the visual contamination causes visual stress, no? Or for example, the intolerance causes public violence, no? The people is intolerant, especially in public transportation, and then a lot of violence is created, right? Also, the poverty creates insecurity. When the people doesn't have to like resources, they start doing criminal activities, no? So that's why the poverty causes insecurity. And finally, the corruption causes lack of resources, right? What is the meaning of lack of resources? What is that? Lack? What is the meaning of lack of? No, no idea. Lack of means falta de. Ready? So when I say lack of resources, it's like falta de recursos. Of course, the corruption causes a lack of resources because the politicians or the people who are corrupted, they steal the money, yes, or they use the money for other different purposes. So it causes a lot of a big lack of resources, right? Bueno, muy bien, very good. So far over here we have checked different problems and the consequence that they have. Ready? Usually the problem is more. Wait, the problem is more important than the consequence, but sometimes I want to emphasize the consequence, right? So depending what is more important, I am going to use first the consequence or first the problem. For example, I can say, for example, that the traffic, bueno, for a lot of years, the traffic has produced pollution, ¿cierto? But maybe I want to give more emphasis to the word pollution, maybe. So this is the one possibility. But I have other possibility in which I am going to use the passive voice. The passive voice is rotate the sentence to give more emphasis, to give more importance to the object. So in that case, what I'm going to do is to pass the object to the first part, pollution. Yes, and then pass the traffic to the back of the sentence, to the complement, because it's not so important, right? What I'm going to do with the verb here is transform this sentence into the passive voice. Ready? The passive voice is basically a combination of the verb to be plus a verb in past participle. So in that case, I'm going to combine the present perfect with verb to be. So the pollution has been. And then I am going to use the same verb, but in past participle. Coincidentally, in this case, it's already in past participle. So I'm going to say that the pollution has been produced and the preposition by. By, which is por. It's the causant, of the problem is this one. So that is the cause, that is the consequence. Ready? So in that case, I'm saying like la polución ha sido producida by the traffic. Ready? Yes? Using the passive voice. Yes? Is it good? Or is it confusing? Or what do you think? Clear, not clear? What do you think? Yeah, clear. Okay, good, very good. In this case, it's the present perfect in passive voice. So it's going to be usually has or have, depending if it's plural or singular, been, and then the verb in past participle, ¿cierto? But other possibility, for example, you told me that in this moment, the poverty is causing a lot of insecurity. I can use it like poverty in this moment, currently, the poverty is causing a lot of insecurity, a lot of insecurity. So a lot of insecurity, it's the object, and the poverty, in this case, is the subject. Así es una de las opciones. That's one of the options. The other option is that I want to emphasize, I want to bring attention over the object. The object, in this case, it's a lot of insecurity. So what I'm going to do is to do the same. Pass the object to the first part, So I said a lot of insecurity, a lot of insecurity. Wait, sorry, insecurity. And then the subject, I pass it to the end, to the complement, no? So poverty, right? What I'm going to do here is to pass this structure to the passive voice. Again, the passive voice, it's just a sentence using verb to be and the verb in past participle. So in that case, is continues to be is, and then being está siendo, verb to be in ing, ¿sí? And then the verb in past participle. This verb is a regular verb, so a lot of insecurity is being caused. I can use by, yeah, that's possible, that's one possibility, or I can use other prepositions, like for example, for, or like for example, due to. What is the meaning of due to? Any ideas? What is the meaning of due to?
Debido a.
Very good, Valeria. Thank you so much. Debido a, yeah? So, and I can say that a lot of insecurity is being caused due to the poverty, o sea, debido a la pobreza, right? But it depends, depende cómo yo lo quiera hacer. Si yo quiero darle más énfasis al problema, pues uso la primera opción, the poverty is causing a lot of insecurity. But if I want to emphasize on the consequence, si me quiero enfocar en la consecuencia, I'm going to use the passive voice, changing the position of the object and the subject in the sentence. Ready? In this case, I am transforming the verb in the present continuous. So the transformation is going to be is or are, being, and then the verb in past participle. Is being transformed, is being caused, is being produced, is being affected, is being remodeled, is being constructed, is being built, is being whatever, treated, ¿cierto? Entonces, it's being o are being, and then the verb in past participle. En cambio aquí es have been o has been, and then the verb in past participle. ¿Listo? Esa es la voz pasiva del presente continuo y también es la voz pasiva del presente perfecto. ¿Vale? Ready? Las dos voces pasivas. Bueno, in this case, I can use, for example, that traffic is causing pollution or that the pollution is being caused for the traffic. ¿Cierto? I can also say that the plastic waste is producing in this moment, is producing water pollution. Or what is the other option? How can I make it the other way in passive voice?
Can you repeat, please? I don't listen to you.
Sure, of course. I can say that the plastic waste is producing water pollution. Or I can do it on the other way. How is the other way? How can be the other structure? If I want to emphasize the consequence that is water pollution, yes, how can I make that structure to work?
Water pollution is caused by plastic waste.
Water pollution is caused by plastic waste. Pero me falta algo, ¿vale? What do you think it is? Is what? ¿Qué me faltará?
Bien.
Very good, yes. Because it's la contaminación del agua está siendo causada, right? So is being caused by the plastic waste, ¿cierto? I can say, for example, that the visual contamination has increased the visual stress. No. Entonces, the visual contamination has increased visual stress. Or what is the other possibility in passive voice? How can I make it in passive voice?
Visual stress has been caused by a visual contamination.
Very good. Muy bien, very good. So the visual stress has been caused. Ready? Has been caused by visual contamination or as a result of visual contamination, by visual contamination. So, this, girls, the idea is that here we can use the passive voice in order to give a focus or to give emphasis to the word that I prefer. If I want to emphasize the subject, I use active voice, ¿cierto? The corruption has caused or has produced a lack of resources. Fin. But if I want to emphasize the sentence in the object, in the consequence of that problem, then I have to use the passive voice. Then I said, the lack of resources or a lack of resources has been caused or has been produced as a result of the corruption. Ready? Entonces, guys, the transformation, it's easy. At the end, I can introduce different kinds of prepositions. Ready? Prepositions like, for example, because of, which it means a causa de, similar to due to, debido a. Ready? For, which is por, the same as by, por, as a result of, como resultado de, and through, a través de. For example, I can say that, I don't know, let's say that a life quality, no todo es malo, ¿no? Like could say that a life quality has been improved through, what was the meaning of through? ¿Qué significaba through?
A través de.
A través de, through technology, right? So in that case, la normal sería, the technology has improved the life quality, but I want to emphasize more on the life quality part. So then I'm going to use it on the other way. The life quality has been improved through technology, yeah? Or as a result of technology, or due to technology, or because of technology, or any of the other options. Ready? Girls, any question on these prepositions? ¿Alguna pregunta en estas preposiciones? Any question on these prepositions, or are they fine?
You can use them in every context or is it specific?
It's not specific, but let's say that you will find the best one, right? You will find the best one depending on the situation, no? So it's better sometimes to say a razón de que no decir solo por, right? For example, when I talk about people, a person is the consequence or is the cause of that problem, usually we use by because the action was done by that person. When it's an action, a través de, and then it's an action, we usually use through, ¿cierto? Through, no sé, for example, my vocabulary has been perfected through, a través de la práctica, through practicing, right? Entonces, I use through and the verb in ing, right? Or if I want to use a normal noun, I can use because of, or as a result of, or due to. Son muy similares, ready? But eso sí, cuando hablamos de personas, we use by. That's it, right? Entonces, pero de resto, you can do it, you can use them willy-nilly, as you prefer. Okay, ¿vale? Yes?
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Listo, my dear people. So, in that case, you mentioned, or we have mentioned, the different problems that we have identified, ready? I would like you to tell me one problem that you have seen in your cities. I think that you live here in Bogota, but you can mention a problem here in the city of Bogota, or maybe a problem in other different city that you have visited. For example, now that I watched the Valeria's picture, I remember that New York has been how do you say that? Infected? No, has been invaded, sorry. Invaded by rats. Yeah. So the city has been invaded by rats. That's a very, very big environmental problem, right? I can also say, the other way, like rats have invaded New York. But what is more important, the rats or the city? The city, of course, is more important. So I said that, New York has been invaded by rats, right? Or I don't know, let's say the I forgot what is, well, the US government. The US government is deporting immigrants. That one, it's in active voice. What is more important, the US government or the immigrants? No, pues the immigrants. I want to give emphasis to the immigrants. Okay, so I'm going to do it on the passive voice. The immigrants or the Latin immigrants are being deported. En este caso, immigrants sería plural, so that's why immigrants are being deported by the US government. ¿Cierto? That's it. Hmm? ¿Qué tal? What do you think? So, can you think on a problem that you have identified in your city or in any other city of the world? Can you tell me? Can you mention any problem? What do you think? One problem that you have identified recently in your city or in any other city, maybe in another city of Colombia, in another city of the world, in another country, maybe.
I live in Pereira, and one of the biggest problems is traffic.
Why, Vale? Why is the traffic a problem in Pereira? Why? Is there a specific reason? Probably a lot of motorcycles or a lot of bicycles or the traffic lights. What is the problem of the traffic? What do you think?
I think maybe the imprudence of people. The traffic is caused by accidents,
Oh
or
my.
maybe fight, people fighting over a minimum problem.
Okay, okay.
Something like someone, ¿cómo se dice meter en la carretera?
Cut? Like cut.
Yeah. And they start fighting, and then they create a large pile of traffic.
Okay, very good. So in that case, Vale give us a very good example, no? So she says, teacher, the traffic is paused for the fights of the people and the imprudence of people, right? So that one I can use it in passive voice. Actually, that was a passive voice, but I can do it in because it's happening right now. So I can say, for example, that the traffic is being affected. Affected is a possibility. I can say paused. I can say damaged. Yeah, so the traffic is being affected due to well, then you can find intolerance, intolerance, right? Or you could find imprudence, or you could tell, what was the other option that you said? Imprudence, wait, violence, no? So public violence, that it depends on you. Yeah, due to is only one possibility. I can say for, I can say because of, I can say as a result of, right? So any of the possibilities that you want to introduce, right? Muy bien, Valeria. Thank you so much. What about Emily? What do you think? One problem that you have seen in any of the cities?
In Bogota, the green areas are being destroyed as a result of urban expansion.
Expansion. Yes, that's a terrible problem, my God. So the green areas are being destroyed, right? Are being destroyed as a result of the urban expansion. Yes, the city is growing up, so we are we are covering, we are invading the green areas that are reserved for the nature, no? So in that case, the green areas are being destroyed as a result of the urban expansion. Muy bien, Emily. Very good. Right? Entonces, in that case, of course, that we can use this kind of a structure for talking about environmental problems, money, or the inflation is being increased as a result of the no sé qué, whatever. But I can also use it for talking about other different types of problems, no? Like, for example, here we talk about anxiety and depression. That is not an environmental problem, but I can also mention, no? So anxiety and depression, pardon, the suicide rates have been increased as a result of the anxiety and depression, for example, right? But for example, also the anxiety and depression are being worsened. What is the meaning of worsened? Ay, espera, in red. Have been worsened. What is that?
Empeorar.
Empeorar, muy bien, vale, very good. So the anxiety and depression have been worsened as a result of the social media, for example, right? Oh, I don't know, the anxiety has been worsened as a result of the high expectations of people, something like that, yes? And also it can be used for talking about good things, no? Like, I don't know, the anxiety has been reduced as a result of the therapy or psychological therapy, right? Or the depression is being treated. What's the meaning of treated? I don't know any verbs. Treated, what is the meaning of that? Treated. What's that?
Tratado, como tratar, como
Yes, muy bien, excellent. So the depression has been treated as a result of the, let's say, family union, family love, family environment. Yes. The anxiety is being treated as a result of the school policies, for example, right? So in that case, it can be also used for talking about good things. ¿Listo? My dear ladies, any question with the passive voice or is it clear the passive voice?
it's clear.
Muy bien, very good. So in this case, we were talking about the problems, but also we were talking, or we want to talk about the solutions or the possible suggestions, the possible recommendations that we have. For example, my dear people, for the water pollution, what do you think is the best recommendation of these possibilities that we have here? Advertising policies, recycling, cohabitation campaigns, employment policies, political control, emotional education, alternative energies. What do you think that is the best solution or the best recommendation for controlling the water pollution?
Recycling.
Recycling, of course, because it is caused, the water pollution is being caused as a result of the plastic waste. So the best suggestion is recycling, right? What about for the public violence? Is there any that it's caused as a result of the intolerance? Any recommendation over there?
Emotional education.
Could be emotional education or probably cohabitation campaigns, no? Like, hey, don't fight. Like, for example, you said in Pereira, the people fight for the traffic. Probably with cohabitation campaigns, like the coexistencia, how did you say that? The convivencia, right? So in that case, you can use cohabitation campaigns in order to reduce the public violence, no? It's a possibility, right? Also, the lack of resources could be that it's being produced as a result of the corruption can be reduced by applying political control to the politicians, right? Or, for example, the pollution that is being produced as as a result of the traffic, how can it be solved or reduced? What is the possible suggestion there? Any possibility here?
Maybe alternative energy.
Of course, because the problem of the traffic is that it uses gasoline. So the use of gasoline, it's producing the smoke, and the smoke is producing the greenhouse effect. What is the meaning of greenhouse effect? Greenhouse effect. What is that? Greenhouse effect? ¿Qué será eso, Maida? Maida?
Efecto invernadero.
Efecto invernadero, muy bien, Emily, very good. So the greenhouse effect is when the gases of the earth keep trapped inside the atmosphere. So in that case, we are producing a lot of like toxic substances and they are keeping inside of the atmosphere, right? So those problems, they have possible suggestions, no? And then when we want to recommend something for fixing this problem, we can do it we can do it in many different ways, but today we're going to focus into specific ways. One, it's the use of to. The other one, it's the use of by. Ready? It's basically the same. The difference is that when I use to, I have to use a verb in the infinitive form, in the basic form. No ing, no s, no, it's in the basic form. Different on the other hand, when I use by, I'm going to use a verb, but that verb it's on the gerund form. O sea, in the ing, working, recycling, reducing, using, and here it's the verb in infinitive. O sea, work, reduce, use, bring, yes, save, all of that. So that is a part of the suggestion, but also we can have different possibilities in order to introduce that suggestion, right? For example, one of the possibilities is to use sentences with verb to be. Like, for example, to reduce pollution, for example. To reduce pollution. Yes, I can say, for example, it's necessary to. It's a good idea to. It's a good idea to. Yes. Or for example, the best way is to, right? So I can have different possibilities in order to introduce suggestions without using modal verbs. Different from the modal verbs, a part of should, would that we know, we can also use these kind of expressions, right? So, no, you know what, teacher, the best way to reduce the traffic is to use the bicycle, for example. Or the best way to reduce the pollution is to use other alternative sources, right? Or one way to, I can also use, for example, one way to is to bla, 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 ¿cierto? Bueno, acá el segundo tú me sobra. Entonces, one way to reduce the poverty is to provide job to the people. One way to reduce insecurity is to improve the employment rates. What is the meaning of employment rates? Eso me suena raro. Employment rates. What is that? Employment rates? What is that? What does it sound like? No.
Also,
Dime, Vale, sorry, again.
employment es empleo.
Yes. And rates?
Tasas de empleo.
Exactly, las tasas de empleo. Muy bien, Vale. Thank you so much, right? Entonces, it says that one way to improve the security is to increase the employment rates, ¿cierto? That's a possibility. ¿No? Ahora, I can say, bueno, that is one possibility that we have here. It's using these expressions with to, right? But another different way is to say, how can you do different things? How do you want to do that? So I can say using, for example, I can, same idea, I can reduce pollution and then using by plus the ing. For example, I can reduce pollution by using electric cars. I can reduce pollution by recycling. I can reduce pollution by using less the cell phone, something like that, right? So in that case, girls, sorry, the idea is that we can introduce the recommendation by usually when we have or when we express how can we do certain things. I can do this by doing that. I can improve this part by doing this. I can, no sé, I can reduce the pollution by not smoking, right? If it's negative, right? In the case of not, I am just going to include it here, not to. But if it's negative here, it's by not and the verb, the negation is right after the by. Ready? So I can reduce pollution by not using the cell phone so much. I can reduce pollution by not traveling by plane so much or something like that. Yes. Different from that, it's to reduce pollution, it is necessary not to use the cell phone so much. To reduce pollution, it is a good idea not to smoke, right? The position of the not, it's going to be different in both cases, right? How do you feel? Questions about these two recommendation structures, or are they clear?
They are clear for me.
Yes, okay. Vale, sorry, Vale, no, sorry, Amy, questions? Good?
Everything is clear.
Okay, very good. So, question for you, my dear lady. So, how can I reduce, how can I reduce corruption? Oh, sorry. Corruption. How can I reduce corruption? Puede contestar con cualquiera de las dos, no necesariamente con I can, but I can answer with any of both. How can I reduce the corruption, my dear ladies? Any ideas? How do you reduce the corruption? What advices do you have for the country? Any ideas? Nothing? How can we reduce corruption? Hey, you're using the okay, the internet of Valeria is not working. Emily, how can we reduce the corruption? Any ideas?
Maybe by educating people in the schools.
That is a good idea, very good. So we can reduce corruption by educating people in the schools, right? Like by educating students on political sciences, for example. No, that could be another possibility. Yes. Or I don't know, maybe it's a good idea to make a stronger political control. That would be another possibility. So you choose one idea, one expression. It's a good idea too, it's necessary too, the best way is, one way is, or using can. Both are, like, the decision is yours. You decide what expression you want to use, right? So, you know what, teacher, we can reduce the corruption by educating people, as Emily said, or by making a stronger political control, or by changing our way of govern, something like that, right? So it depends on you what you really want to use, okay? Bueno, so I think no questions about these expressions. They're going to be fine. So over here, we can go to the back part, to the last part, in which we have, first, we're going to have some examples here to complete. We have different problems, but we just mentioned the problem. Famine, which is hambruna, poverty, global warming, corruption, where global warming it's calentamiento global, corruption, cancer, cancer, political unrest, como desconfianza, descontento político, right? Traffic accidents, yes, traffic accidents, and overpopulation, sobrepoblación, right? Now, choose one of the problems here, one of the problems that you see in this list, and please complete it with the thing that you believe that it's the cause of this problem. For example, the famine, and I completed, has been caused by the resource waste, por el desperdicio de los recursos, right? The famine has been caused by the resource waste. Entonces, choose one of the other 8 options and complete it with the thing that you believe that is the cause of that problem. Ready? Go ahead, tell me what's the cause of this problem.
In global warming has been driven by excessive carbon emissions.
Of course, we mean excellent, my dear Emily. So the global warming has been, well, let's say worsened by excessive emissions or gas emissions, ¿no? Muy bien. Very good, Emily. Vale, can you listen to me? ¿Me escuchas? Are you there?
Yes.
Yes.
Poverty has been increased by the corruption.
Totally true. The poverty has been increased by the corruption. Muy bien, that's it. Ready? Ahora, now we're going to do the opposite way. Now we're going to find what is the consequence of those problems, right? For example, again, with famine, an increase on the death rate has been caused as a result of the famine. Here, I am using it as a problem, and I am describing what is the cause of that problem, but also that famine has other different consequences. The famine is the cause of other problems, no? For example, yes, the famine has been caused by the resource waste, but at the same time, an increase on the death rate, las tasas de mortalidad, has been caused as a result of the famine, right? Now, what I want you to do is to think on the same two that you use, poverty and global warming, and tell me what other problems have been increased or have been worsened or have been produced as a result of those two problems, right? So now it's the opposite way. Try to.
Traffic congestion has been worsened to traffic accidents.
Oh, bueno, okay, you did it with traffic accidents. Muy bien. What was the first part, my dear? Congestion? Like,
Yes.
okay, traffic jams, which are trancones, ¿cierto? Traffic jams have been worsened, I think you said, worsened by traffic accidents, no? Okay, muy bien, Emily, that's great. My dear Valeria, what about you? What do you think? Maybe Valeria is having connection problems. Bueno, it doesn't matter, no problems, so good. Listen, people. So in this case, we have described the problems that we have identified. Ready? The traffic, the pollution, the global warming, the poverty, and the consequence of those problems, no? That they have been created, they have been produced as a result of the lack of money, of the lack of resources, different causes, right? And also we mentioned some possible suggestions in order to reduce those problems, no? For example, teacher, for reducing the global warming, it is a good idea to reduce the fuel or the gasoline emissions. For reducing the global warming, or when we can reduce the global warming by using aeolic energy. That's another possibility, right? So those were the purposes of this week. It was describing the problematic or the environmental problematic using the passive voice. That's good. And also, in addition, using the expressions with by and with infinitives in order to give recommendation for those problems, right? It's a good idea to blah, blah, blah. You can do it by doing no sé qué, blah, 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 right? So you have two possibilities in order to suggest recommendations for them. ¿Listo, my dear? Questions, difficulties, problems, ¿cómo se sienten? Good, fine, más o menos, more or less.
Everything is clear, teacher.
Yes, okay, very good. Que parece que sin conexión, bueno, no problem. Entonces, pues, basically that would be all for this week. Yes, it was a short class. It was you got the class completely right. So, that would be all for this week. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the participation. And see you the next week. The next week we also have one class, so see you there. That's it. Have a good weekend and see you the next week, okay?
Bye, teacher. Thank you.
Bye-bye. See you later.